In the early 1770s, colonial America does not look like a land on the edge of revolution. Fields are cultivated, ports are busy, churches are full on Sundays. Life appears orderly, even prosperous. But revolutions rarely begin with chaos. They begin with questions. Across taverns, homes, and small town halls, colonists begin to ask themselves something dangerous. Who truly decides our future? They are British subjects, yet Britain feels distant, not just geographically, but emotionally. Laws arrive without voices. Taxes are demanded without consent. Protection is promised, but respect is missing. This is not yet a call for independence. It is something quieter, more fragile, a growing awareness that obedience without representation feels less like order and more like submission. Britain stands victorious after the 7 Years' War. Its empire has expanded, but so has its debt. London looks west, not with curiosity, but calculation. Parliament believes the solution is simple. The colonies should help pay for the empire that protects them. New taxes are introduced. Paper, tea, everyday goods suddenly carry the weight of imperial finance. From Britain's perspective, this is reasonable governance. From America's perspective, it feels like punishment without trial. What angers the colonies most is not the money itself. It is the principle. Decisions are made an ocean away by men who will never see the faces of those who must obey them. Slowly, loyalty begins to crack. Before muskets are raised, words take the field. Pamphlets circulate. Debates ignite. No taxation without representation is more than a slogan. It is a moral line drawn in ink and conviction. The colonies are not united yet. Fear remains strong. Britain is powerful. Resistance feels reckless. But ideas are contagious. Once spoken aloud, they cannot be unspoken. Men who once argued quietly now argue openly. What was private frustration becomes public defiance. This revolution will begin not with an army, but with language. April 1775. British troops marched toward Lexington with clear orders. Disarm the rebellion before it becomes a war. They expect submission. They meet resistance. In the early morning haze, a single gunshot rings out. No one knows who fired first, but everyone understands what follows. That sound is not just a weapon discharging. It is the collapse of compromise. From this moment on, there is no peaceful return to the old world. The war does not begin with generals. It begins with ordinary men making extraordinary choices. Farmers leave fields unharvested. Shopkeepers close doors. Fathers walk away from families without knowing if they will return. They are not trained soldiers. They are volunteers driven by belief rather than certainty. What they lack in experience, they replace with resolve. This is not a fight for conquest. It is a fight to decide who they are allowed to become. Boston is no longer just a city. It becomes a message. After Lexington and Concord, British forces retreat into Boston, believing the rebellion can still be contained. Instead, the city turns into a pressure chamber. Colonial militias surround it, not with perfect coordination, but with determination that surprises even themselves. This is not a siege in the classical sense. Supplies still move. Cannons remain silent for long stretches. But psychologically, the city is suffocating. Every British soldier inside Boston feels the weight of being watched by a population that no longer fears the empire as it once did. For the colonies, Boston represents proof. Proof that British power can be limited. Proof that resistance does not immediately mean annihilation. Hope, once dangerous to express, now becomes contagious. When George Washington arrives to take command, he is not greeted by a polished army. What he sees is potential mixed with chaos. Men loyal to their colonies, not to a central authority. Officers elected by popularity rather than competence. Washington understands immediately. This war will not be won by enthusiasm alone. Discipline must replace disorder, but without extinguishing the spirit that brought these men here. He speaks little, observes much. Authority, he knows, must be felt before it is declared. From this moment forward, the revolution gains something it desperately needs, a center of gravity. On paper, the Continental Army should collapse. Supplies are scarce. Uniforms are mismatched. Ammunition is counted like treasure. Men sleep on cold ground, wrapped in hope more than blankets. Desertion is a constant threat. Hunger, an ever-present companion. And yet, the army remains. Not because it is strong, but because it believes it must exist. This is a force held together not by pay or glory, but by the quiet understanding that defeat would mean submission, not peace. Something fundamental shifts. The language of protest fades. The language of revolution takes its place. Colonists stop asking how Britain might treat them better. They begin asking whether Britain should rule them at all. This change is dangerous and irreversible. Once authority is questioned at its root, compromise becomes nearly impossible. What began as resistance to policy now becomes resistance to power itself. In early 1776, Thomas Paine publishes Common Sense. It is not elegant. It is not cautious. And that is exactly why it works. Paine speaks directly to ordinary people, not philosophers or politicians. He argues that monarchy itself is absurd, that an island should not rule a continent. The pamphlet spreads like fire. Independence is no longer whispered. It is argued, defended, demanded. Ideas now march faster than armies. Philadelphia, summer of 1776. The heat is heavy, not just in the air, but in the room where delegates gather. They are not soldiers. They carry no weapons. Yet the decision before them is more dangerous than any battlefield. Declaring independence means abandoning the last illusion of compromise. It means branding themselves traitors in the eyes of the British Empire. Some hesitate, not because they doubt the idea, but because they understand the cost. If this fails, there will be no mercy. When the vote is taken, history shifts quietly. No cheers, no celebrations, only the shared understanding that there is no road back. The Declaration of Independence is more than a political statement. It is a provocation. Its words are careful, but its meaning is explosive. It does not ask for reform. It announces separation. By placing grievances alongside universal ideals, the document transforms colonial anger into a moral argument the world can understand. From this moment on, the conflict is no longer an internal British problem. It becomes an international question. Britain responds not with debate, but with force. New York becomes the target. British troops land in overwhelming numbers. Their navy controls the waters. Their discipline contrasts sharply with the fragile American lines. Washington fights, retreats, and fights again. Each withdrawal is painful, not just militarily, but emotionally. The illusion that independence will be quick or easy dies in New York. Defeat changes the tone of the revolution. Desertion increases. Supplies vanish. Some soldiers question why they are still here. The public mood darkens. Loyalists grow bolder. Patriots grow quieter. For the first time, the question is not how to win, but whether survival itself is possible. December 1776. Winter grips the land. The army is shrinking. Morale is collapsing. Washington makes a decision that defies logic. He will attack, not because the odds favor him, but because inaction guarantees defeat. On a freezing Christmas night, soldiers cross the Delaware River through ice and darkness. This is not courage born of confidence. It is courage born of necessity. The revolution hangs by a thread, and Washington pulls it tight. The attack on Trenton succeeds beyond expectation. Hessian troops, caught off guard, surrender quickly. Militarily, it is a modest engagement. Strategically, it changes everything. For the first time in months, the Continental Army wins, clearly, undeniably. Soldiers who had prepared themselves for defeat now see proof that the enemy can be beaten. Civilians who had begun to doubt the revolution allow themselves to hope again. Trenton does not win the war, but it saves it. In revolutions, survival often matters more than glory. In 1777, the war reaches a decisive turning point at Saratoga. British General Burgoyne, confident and overextended, finds himself surrounded. American forces, now more coordinated and more confident, press their advantage. When the British surrender, it sends shockwaves far beyond the battlefield. For the first time, a major British army has been defeated in open campaign. The revolution is no longer a gamble. It is a viable cause, and the world is watching. France has been watching patiently. Saratoga convinces them that this rebellion can succeed. When France formally allies with the American cause, the war transforms instantly. What was once a colonial uprising becomes a global conflict. British resources are stretched. Naval battles erupt. Diplomacy becomes as important as gunfire. Independence now depends not only on courage, but on international balance of power. The American Revolution now spans oceans. British fleets clash with French ships in the Caribbean, the Atlantic, and beyond. Spain and the Netherlands join the pressure. For Britain, America becomes only one front among many. This global strain quietly shifts the odds. Empires rarely fall because of one battle. They fall because they are forced to fight everywhere at once. The winter of 1777 to 1778 at Valley Forge is not a battle. It is an endurance test. Soldiers freeze, starve, fall ill. Supplies are scarce. Shoes are luxuries. Blood stains the snow where feet should be protected by leather. And yet, the army does not disintegrate. Under unimaginable hardship, discipline is forged. Training replaces chaos. Identity replaces improvisation. Valley Forge does not create victory. It creates an army capable of surviving long enough to achieve it. When spring comes to Valley Forge, the army that marches out is not the same army that marched in. European-style training has imposed order. Discipline has replaced improvisation. Soldiers now move not as individuals, but as a force. Washington understands something crucial. Morale is built not only on victories, but on belief in competence. For the first time, the Continental Army looks like an army that might actually endure. The revolution has learned how to survive pain and how to transform it into strength. The war shifts south, and its character changes. Here, the lines between soldier and civilian blur. Loyalists and patriots live side by side, often in the same families. Battles are smaller, faster, and more ruthless. Homes are burned. Reprisals are personal. This is no longer a war of ideals alone. It is a war of survival and revenge. The revolution begins to resemble a civil war within a war. Not all Americans fight for independence. Thousands remain loyal to the crown. Friendships break. Families fracture. The revolution forces choices that cannot be undone. For many, neutrality is impossible. Silence itself becomes a statement. This internal division leaves scars that will last long after the war ends. In 1781, all paths lead to Yorktown. British General Cornwallis fortifies his position, expecting evacuation by sea. What he does not expect is total isolation. French naval power blocks escape. American and French troops tighten the noose on land. This is strategy perfected by patience. The empire, for the first time, has nowhere to go. Cannons thunder day after day. Each explosion erodes not just walls, but certainty. Inside Yorktown, British soldiers understand what history is about to decide. Outside, American troops wait, not with celebration, but with exhaustion. This is not the moment of triumph. It is the moment of ending. On October 19th, 1781, the drums begin to beat, slowly. British soldiers march out of Yorktown, weapons lowered, flags folded. There is no cheering, no celebration, only silence and recognition. This is not humiliation. It is history accepting its verdict. The war is not yet officially over, but everyone present understands. The outcome is settled. When the guns fall silent, something unfamiliar fills the air. Not joy, not relief, but uncertainty. Farmers return to burned fields. Cities count the cost. Graves are marked or never found. Independence has been won, but peace must still be built. The hardest part of the revolution begins after the fighting ends. The United States is born without a script. There is no king, no empire to copy, no clear roadmap ahead. Only questions: how much power is too much? Who truly governs? The revolution has destroyed authority. Now it must reinvent it. Freedom, it turns out, is complicated. Not everyone shares equally in the victory. Native nations lose land. Enslaved people remain in chains. Women return to silence. The revolution speaks of liberty, but delivers it unevenly. This contradiction will echo through American history. The war for independence ends. The struggle for equality does not. The American Revolution does not end in America. Its ideas cross oceans, ignite debates, and inspire uprisings. A radical notion enters history: power belongs to the people. Imperfect, incomplete, but irreversible. This was not just a war for independence. It was a challenge to the very idea of empire.